All right, so I'm going to start here by the door where I come in. And as soon as you walk in my shop, you run into some lawn equipment. And then right after that, pretty much this half of the shop from here over is dedicated to my knife making, blacksmithing, bladesmithing kind of stuff. I do have some tools on this side of the shop. My big chop saw that was donated to me, my Paragon heat treat oven, and then I get into the forging area and whatnot back there, but we'll get to that in a minute. So starting by the roll-up door right off the bat, I've got my Dual bandsaw. This is a 1964 Dual contour machine. It's a very, very heavy duty metal cutting bandsaw, and it's really opened up a lot of speed for me, for lack of a better way to put it. It allows me to cut material lengthwise much faster than I could have previously. It is 220 volt 3-phase, so it needs a VFD to run it. So I've got a VFD that turns it on for me and makes it run just like it used to, using the original engine, original motor, and all that. Anyway, it's got a 1/2 inch by 122 inch blade in it at the moment. The blade welder works. You can look back on my Instagram and see some info about that. And that blade welder is extremely, extremely useful. Moving on down, we've got a Riverside Machine forging press. This is a hydraulic forging press, 24 tons of power, and it allows me to use and work with a lot bigger stock than I normally would be able to. This is often called an Uncle Al's forge press. It has a pretty simple die system in it. This is 8 inches by 4 inches by 3/8 flat bar or plate, and one on the top, one on the bottom. It's just held in with these little clips that keeps it in place, and basically you just weld on whatever shape you want to use to shape your material. Right now it's got these flat dies in there, and then I've got a bucket full of other dies, and then dies just laying on the floor that I've made, and some of them came with it when I bought it from the guy that I got it from. This gets a lot of use in my shop, and it really allows me to manipulate and resize stock on the fly. It's very, very, very handy. We'll talk about anvils in a minute. This is my forge cart. This is actually a big steel coal forge that my gas forges are sitting on right now. I don't do a lot of coal forging here in the shop because I have not built in a flue in the ceiling yet to vent all the smoke and whatnot. So 99% of everything I do here in the shop is done with this small little gas forge right here. I have this little piece of tin sitting on the top so that when I get a little dragon's breath, this kind of keeps it from making the heat rise so much in the shop. This is a 3-burner forge to the left of it. These are Ron Rail style burners, R-E-I-L. And if you go to Google and search Ron Rail, R-O-N-R-E-I-L, you'll see the plans for these burners. Very simple. They use standard plumbing parts available at a plumbing store. They don't need any power. They simply take cool air and suck it in here. As the air inside the forge gets hot, it creates a Venturi circular system where it's pulling air through the back of the burner and pulls it into the forge and keeps itself lit. So it's kind of a self-perpetuating forge. Once you light it and once that Venturi effect starts, then it just keeps going. And so I'll show you real quick how I light my forge. I turn my gas on, I grab a lighter. There you go. And so as that runs, it will get hotter and hotter, and the refractory material inside the forge will keep all that heat inside. And so, yeah, obviously that's my propane tank that runs the forges. My forge cart has a small side shelf where I put hammers and some other tools that I use, and then these are billets and things getting ready to be made into tools and items. I often keep them right there. Let's see, my post vise. This is my primary post vise stand that I built for this post vise. It's got a rack that goes around this side and around the back. I keep hammers and tongs there, and then I also have racks on some of my anvil stands where I keep some of the other hammers and tongs that I use more often. Again, we'll talk about anvils in a minute. Let's see. This is my quench tube, or my quenching spot. I've got an ammo can down there at the bottom that's full of veggie oil for kind of just quick and dirty quenches for small things. And then right here, this is a 4-inch by 36-inch, or I think that's a little higher than 36. That's a tube full of commercial quench oil. That's full of 11-second quench oil at the moment. There's a striking anvil. I've got a little small acetylene torch rig in the back. Now this is one of my favorite tools in the shop. This is a inline treadle hammer. This is a Clay Spencer design inline treadle hammer. This treadle hammer was built with a bunch of others in a treadle hammer build class that was put on here in Mississippi by Clay Spencer and a bunch of other guys, and I was not able to make it to that build class, but I was able to buy this machine from someone who was, and it was worth every last penny. I use this machine all the time. I do all of my stamping, under this machine because it allows me to hold both of my hands on the work and on the stamp, and then I just bring my foot over here and smash down. This top ram here, this is, I think it's 3 or 3.5 inch solid bar, and the whole upper ram with this die system in place on it. I think the whole upper ram weighs close to 90 pounds or more. And then this bottom ram is a 6-inch solid round anvil all the way to the bottom. So that's a lot of mass. It allows you to move a lot of steel with just your leg. And if you don't have a treadle hammer, they have plans for these, and you can build one yourself. Moving on down, I have a jet drill press. This is my only drill press in the shop. It's kind of a medium-sized drill press. I use it all the time. It's got a light on it. It's got a laser on it that I just never ever use. It's got a pretty neat clutch kind of system in there that changes the speed. So I can use this handle right here to increase or decrease the speed. Usually pretty much keep it on the lowest speed because I'm almost always drilling into steel. So this is my workbench. This is an L-shaped workbench that starts here and goes into the wall and then goes all the way down. And yeah, that's kind of where things just gather, really. I keep a small clear spot right in this area where I kind of do most of my bench work that I need to. I've got an all-important radio. And then this is called a French cleat storage system. These are just slats that are on the wall that are beveled at a 45 degree. And then all of the things that are hanging on those are very, very simple. Let me see if I can pull one down. They're very simple little fixtures that sit on the cleat. So if you'll look, see how that's cut at a bevel? So that sits right there and the weight holds that up. So this is just plywood air nailed together with some glue, and this is a dowel rod And if I put two of these together like that, I can hold hammers. I can throw all kinds of other junk up there. But you can see I've made some kind of custom ones for holding saws. I've made one that holds my drills up here. And all of this stuff is just hanging by this 45-degree bevel that's holding it all in place. So even this little guy right here with all my tiny little chisels and other stuff, you know, it just lifts right out. And the other really nice thing about that is that I can move everything on this wall. I can take everything off this wall and move it around in just a moment or two. So nothing's really nailed to the wall. Everything is just on the French cleat system. You see, it's all just plywood. This is plywood with holes cut in it to hold various hand tools and stuff. There's one I made to hold like scissor kind of things, clamps. There's one for other little small things. So anyway, yeah, the French cleat system is really cool. I like it a lot, and I'm constantly going back and making new small little things to put on the wall. See, I've got space up at the top to add more, and eventually I want to go to the other side of the shop over there and put a wall of French cleat up on that side. Anyway, that's the French cleat system. Really like it a lot. Down here on the bottom underneath my workbench, this is where I keep nails and fixtures and all kinds of chemicals and liquids and oils and, you know, all that kind of stuff that you kind of gather in a shop. There's another post vise. I keep this post vise over here. I really kind of keep it over here for welding. It's not really the best thing, but it does allow me to put up my little small temporary welding table. And so all this is a small piece of plate. And I don't know if you can see, but yeah, I've got a piece of angle iron welded on here, and the angle iron is clamped in the vise. And so when I need a small welding table, I just throw that plate with angle iron up there and cinch down the vise, and that becomes my small welding table. I can clamp my ground on there, and I can clamp other stuff on, because most of the welding I do is not very big. So moving on down, I've got a bench grinder back there with some paper sharpening wheels on it, a small oven for tempering small blades, angle grinder stuff up there. There's various 2x72 belts. This is a Dayton 8-inch bench grinder. This is a big heavy duty guy. I've got one grinding wheel in the shop, or one stone wheel, and it's right there. I don't use it a whole lot, but I use these kind of wheels all the time. This is just a wire wheel. So I've got one here on the Dayton 8-inch. This is pretty stiff. And then on this little guy right here, this is an old washing machine motor, a double arbor washing machine motor. And I've had this forever, probably 20 years. And on one side I keep a wire wheel, and I've got this flimsy little shield right here that just kind of keeps all the stuff from gathering behind it. And then on this side, I've got a 3M Scotch-Brite wheel. This is a pretty stiff wheel, and this is what I use to put my final finish on, like hammer faces and anything I want kind of shiny. I use this wheel to kind of deburr or polish with. This corner over here kind of is where I collect a lot of miscellaneous flat bar, round bar steel. This is all blade steel here. This is Nitro V 1095 15N20. There's a stack of 15N20 and 1084. This is going to wind up being some Damascus. This is just an old acetylene tank that's been cut, and I use this on occasion for long and when I need some kind of big long water tank, I use that for that. And eventually I thought it might become another forge, but Over in this corner, you got some really nasty torn up insulation and lots of 5160 round bar over there. So if we keep moving around, I've got another bandsaw right here. This is a Powermatic wood cutting bandsaw. This is where I process all my handle material, like when I'm cutting down big planks of rough cut hickory into handle material. This is where it happens. A lot of times I'll roll this door up and slide this saw out and just let all the sawdust go out that way. If we move on down, this big wooden table right here, this is kind of my grinding table. This is where my 2 belt grinders live. Right here I have a Grizzly G105 belt sander. This is a 2x72 in an upright formation. It also has a buffing wheel on this side. It's got a tool rest. This whole arm can tilt back. This is a pretty standard belt grinder you see in a lot of different shops. To the right of that, I have my other 2x72 that I put together. This is made off of the plans by Dan Camo. His website is dcknives.com. He's got awesome plans, templates, all kinds of knife making stuff out there, but he's got plans for this belt sander, and this is called the BG272. I could talk about this thing all day, but I'll just sum it up and say this is one of the best tools I've ever spent time and money to make, and it's been a game changer in the shop, being able to have a grinder that you can stand at and look down. When you're grinding a blade, being able to look down as you grind and to keep your arms close in and at a 90-degree angle from your body is very important, and this kind of grinder allows you to do that. This kind of grinder makes that kind of difficult. If I want to grind in that way on this grinder here, I kind of have to either stand on top of a bucket so that I can get up high enough to look down, or you have to find some way to push this out a little bit so you can look down. And I'm not saying that grinding can't be done on this. It certainly can. People do phenomenally good grinds on this grinder, but for me, the big difference is being able to look down on the grinder. Plus, this grinder accepts standard 1.5-inch tool arms, which is pretty much the industry standard. So I can buy KMG tool arms. I can buy any tool arm that's made for a grinder that uses 1.5-inch tool arms, and it'll work on this homemade grinder. So here's some tool arms I made myself in the back. Small wheel attachment, 12-inch contact wheel, and there's an empty slot right there, and that's normally where this flat work rest goes. This is driven by a 2-horsepower, totally enclosed, fan-cooled Toshiba 2-horsepower motor and a Tico L510 VFD that is inside of a NEMA dust-proof enclosure. I use this grinding magnet that I got from Billy Helton. When I'm not using it to grind blades, it holds this NEMA enclosure shut. So anyway, there you go, Billy. Dual purpose tool. Check that out. Moving on down, on the end of my workbench here, I have a granite surface plate. When you're making knives or you need things to be really flat, this is what you need. You need something that's really flat, and a granite surface plate serves that purpose. So I can tape sheets of sandpaper to this and pull handle material down and make sure that it's, super flat. Helps with fit and finish. Moving on down, there's another small wooden workbench, and this one was purpose built for this fly press. Fly presses really need bigger, better, sturdier tables than this, but at the time this is what I have, or what I had, and you'll notice this table is actually bolted to this other big table, and the reason it's bolted to that table is that a fly press, even this number 4, creates so much rotational mass that this table will just walk around if it's not really affixed to either the ground or something else beside it. So That's a fly press. I got this fly press from Andrew Alexander, which is at Blacksmith Tools on Instagram. Great guy, has great tools. And I had it shipped from him to me here from Texas to Mississippi, really economically using Fastenal. That's a phenomenal tool. I use it all the time, all the time. Moving on down, I have a 33-pound self-contained air hammer. This is obviously a big workhorse here in the shop. That's enough of that. Anyway, yeah, it's an awesome tool. I'm extremely thankful to have it. It does an awful lot of work for me here in the shop. So now let's talk real quickly about anvils. So right now I'm using this 282-pound Cisco Swedish anvil on a stand that I built for it. And right now this is the heaviest, biggest anvil I have in the shop. It's a really great anvil. Swedish anvils are my favorite. And to that end, let's move to this guy. This is a Swedish anvil. This is a Kolswa B37 anvil. Love the way that you can work on this double horn. It's amazing. And this has a standard Hardy hole, a little bit larger Pritchett hole, and lots of fun to work on. Really, really amazing being able to have that flat tapered horn. That's really, really handy. This anvil over here, this is one I don't use a whole lot right now, simply because I don't want to mess it up. Not that I would mess it up, but I kind of want to leave it alone for right now, and that's just the way I feel about it. But this is a Laurel Machine and Foundry anvil. This is a 175-pound cast steel anvil. It was made right here in Mississippi at the Laurel Machine and Foundry Company. And sadly, they're not making these anvils anymore right now. They may make them in the future. I'm not sure. But for now, I don't think they are. It's a beautiful anvil. I was super, super lucky to find this one. It's in new condition, brand new condition. It's even still got the milling on the face. So you can see why I just don't really want to beat it up too much right now. But you can see the Laurel Machine and Foundry logo on the side, and then below that it says 50-1. If you're like me and you like to watch other blacksmiths work, you've probably seen Brent Bailey. This is the same kind of anvil that Brent Bailey uses. Brent Bailey uses a Laurel Machine and Foundry anvil, which he bought when he came here to Mississippi and worked with them, Mr. Malloy, for a while. So anyway, that's just one of my pride and joy blacksmith tool possessions. I think it's amazing to have an anvil that was made here in Mississippi. This is not an anvil, but it's a swage block, and this was made by Uncle Buck's Forge. It's 4140 steel. It's got all the different shapes I need. I keep a lot of my drifts in there, small drifts, big drifts, bolster plates and whatnot. It's got all the different holes and pass-throughs that I need. Really, really a great tool. I like it a lot. Over here, this is a Wilton big industrial chop saw bandsaw. And again, this is another one of those tools that allows me to work with really big stock. And excuse me, this tool was donated to me on loan from a really, really kind neighbor who just dropped by one day, said, "Hey, I've seen your work. I saw you on TV. I've got a chop saw I'm not using. I'd love for you to use it. If I need it, I know where it is." And of course I was like, Yes, please, thank you. I would love to use it, and I do. I use this thing all the time. Um, this is a Paragon 24-inch heat treating kiln. I use that for proper heat treating of all different kind of steels, whether I'm making an axe, a hammer, blades, or whatnot. This is the tool that allows me to dial that heat treat in really, really precisely. So anyway, that's a quick tour of the shop. In the back there, in that old sliding glass door, that was a glass door that used to be on our house, but in that room, it's kind of a clean room in there. That's eventually going to become kind of where I do all of my clean work for, maybe sheath making and things like that. But anyway, that's a little quick tour of my shop. This is where I work. It's taken me probably a good 20 years. I started doing this, I started dabbling in it around the year 2000. So it's taken me all that time to put all this together. I'm super thankful and blessed to have this equipment and the ability and the desire to use it. And I just wanted to kind of share with you guys what my workspace was like. Oh yeah, one last thing. This is an anvil that I just recently put together. This is a 500-pound block of steel on the bottom that was used as a test weight for cranes. And on the top, this is a solid round block of 4140. So this is 5.5 inches by 14.5 inches of 4140 steel, and it was professionally heat treated, so it's pretty solid as far as an anvil is concerned. It works great for bladesmithing and for allowing me to swage in this round contour when I need to on pieces of steel. So that's really, really cool. Something that I put together that wasn't sure I would use a whole lot, but I've been using it a lot. I like it. Anyway, that's kind of a tour of my shop again. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any other questions about my tools or anything I can answer as far as questions about how they work or, all that kind of stuff, just give me a holler. Thanks. Bye.